And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I love the theme of Gauntlet of Fools. It's a very entertaining one, where I say I could go into that dungeon and I could beat out the enemies with just this dagger. And our guy says, really? Well, I could go in there, I'll take this sword, but I'm going to go in there with one arm tied behind my back. And our guy says, really? I'll go in there with one arm tied behind my back and no breakfast. Next guy says, I'll go in there with one arm tied behind my back, no breakfast, and with a hangover. And you go back and forth until someone goes in. Well, that's what this game is all about. Gauntlet of Fools is about making boasts with adventurers and going into a dungeon. It's designed by Donald X. Vaccarino, who's made very popular games like Kingdom Builder and Dominion and other games like that. Let's take a look at this one to see which side of the scale it falls on. Dominion, woohoo, or Kingdom Builder. The game is made up of two parts. In the first part, you're going to take a deck of class cards and you're going to deal them on the table. So here we have a ninja, a knight, a jester, and a trapper. Although there's all sorts of things in here: warlord, wizard, zombie, prospector, thief, zealot, avenger, priest, berserker, alchemist. Then you're going to give each one of these guys a weapon. So the ninja has a bow. The knight has a scepter. The jester has a flaming sword. And the trapper has deadly fists. Although there's mace, axe, wand, throwing stars, sling, spear, morning star, etc. Now, what players are going to be doing here is they are going to be picking one of these groupings. So the first player picks and he says, ooh, the ninja with the bow. Or he might want the knight with the scepter. He can pick which of these that he wants. So let's say on my turn I take the jester with the flaming sword. Now, we'll come back to what these stats mean in a moment, but you might want the jester with the flaming sword. So then when it's your turn, instead of picking one of the remaining three cards, you say, I'm going to take the jester with the flaming sword, and I'm going to take him. He's going to go through the dungeon while hopping on one leg. There are 6 different boasts that you can add. Now, when it comes back to my turn to pick, I can say, really? I'll take him hopping on one leg and one arm tied behind his back. And you say, really? I'll take him one arm hopping on one leg, one arm tied behind his back, and without breakfast. Well, really? Well, then blindfolded. Well, while juggling with a hangover. Now, I doubt it would go there that many. At some point, someone's going to say, each of these adds a negative bonus. For example, this, without breakfast, you start with a wound. The one arm tied behind back, all 1s and 2s you roll don't count. The hopping on one leg, you're -2 the armor. So at some point, all those negative things, you're going to want one of the other people instead. But let's take a closer look at one of the people here. Here we have a knight. And the abilities of the knight, you see here that he has a 16 defense, and he starts with 2 tokens, 2 character tokens, and he'll use those tokens for a special ability here, which let him prevent all but one drop of damage to yourself from a monster hitting you. So you can stop all but one. His weapon here, the scepter, is going to let him roll 4 dice in combat, and it also gives him 2 weapon tokens. And before rolling, you kill a monster that has an attack less than its defense. So you can use that ability. So you're going to take these people and decide which one to use. Once everybody has picked one, and they may or may not have different boasts on them, then each person is going to go to the encounter deck, and this is the rest of the game. The encounter deck, we're going to turn over the cards from the encounter deck one at a time, and each player is going to deal with the same encounter, although you deal with it separately. So let's take a look at the first encounter here. It's Mushroom Man. Super Mario would be so pleased. Now, Mushroom Man has an attack of 15 and a defense of 14. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attack the Mushroom Man. So let's say I'm using the knight and he had a scepter. I have 4 dice here, and I add, what a horrible roll, 3, 4, 8. I've missed the Mushroom Man. The ninja with the bow also has 4 dice, and he rolls and he has 10, 15, 19. He hits the Mushroom Man. Now, when you beat the Mushroom Man, you get a reward. Here it's 2 gold. And the game comes with plenty of gold that you will take as you conquer each of these things. Also, you heal 1 after combat. Now, after you've attacked the Mushroom Man, whether you hit him or not, even if you kill him, he hits you. So then we look at his ability, which is 15, and we compare that to your armor. So, for example, the Jester here is going to take a point of, well, 2 points of damage, because that's how much the Mushroom Man deals, while the Knight is just going to scoff at him. You can use a special ability, which might allow you to avoid a wound, but you're likely at some point in time, from some of the monsters, you're going to take wounds, and you'll put those in front of you. And occasionally, they'll do other things to you, or maybe they'll lower your armor in the future, or they'll lower the amount of attack dice that you do, or they might give you benefits where you get extra attack dice, or, you know, but again, you can spend your weapon tokens, and you can spend your character tokens for the special abilities that you have, which might help you defeat the monsters. Sometimes when you turn an encounter over, it just hits everybody. Here, everyone takes a wound. Spear trap. Nothing you can do about it. Other times, it affects the next monster. This is an extra tough slime monster. So instead of being 18 in defense, it's now a 21. So this monster is just gonna really nail all the creatures because he attacks at 22, and his damage is 1, and you will receive -1 die for the rest of the game when you fight this slime monster. So he's extra tough, very difficult monster to kill. So as you can see, it doesn't really matter how good you are. You're going to run out of tokens, and eventually you're going to get killed. And when you're killed, you're done, and that's fine. You're out of the game, and you keep going until everyone's killed. Once everyone's killed, you will count up the amount of gold that you have. Whoever has the most gold is the winner. All right, I kid. I know some of you like Kingdom Builder, and it won awards, so what do I know? But Gauntlet of Fools is a very... I'm having a hard time classifying this game. The game starts out with a boasting phase, and when you look at that, you're like, oh, that's really interesting, and that's a neat concept. And so we boast for this, and then we go in a dungeon, and then we boast again. No, the game's over then. Oh. And in fact, you will find that in the very first game people play, there's a good chance there's not even any boasting happening. Because everyone says, well, that looks like a good combo. Okay, I'll take this combo. I'll take this one. And there's no boasting. See, no problem. We'll come back in the second round. Well, there is no second round. So it just seems odd. The boasting, which is the coolest, most interesting part of the game, is only there at the beginning. And if the 4 combinations of characters and weapons are fairly equal, doesn't even come into play. Now, there are some characters and combinations that will be much more powerful than others, and then the boasting will come into play a little bit. And again, it's a neat mechanic. I just wish it was used more often in the game. I wish that maybe the game had been designed where there was a boasting phase, and then you went to the dungeon for 3 rounds, and then there was another boasting phase, and then you went to the dungeon for 3 rounds. It would take some major redesign, but I think that's something I would enjoy. Going through the dungeon is just kind of roll dice and see what happens. Yeah, there's a few decisions. Should I use my don't get wounded ability here, which a good chunk of the abilities come down to roll extra dice or somehow not get wounded. That's okay, and that's very light and interesting, but the game that's interesting, that sets us apart, is the beginning phase, the boasting phase, and that's such a tiny, minute portion of the game that everything after that kind of just plays itself out. So here's the deal. I did not unenjoy my playing of the game. I love the theme. I like the artwork. I like the gameplay plays out rolling dice. I'm okay with that. Oh, woo, let's see what happens. Yay, I'm going to fight the next monster, and you keep going till you're dead. That's all well and good. But it's not enough. It feels like an undeveloped game. It feels like they could have done more. The boasting is such an interesting thing. You have all those tiles there, but it only comes into play for a very short amount of time. And you say, well, you're just not playing it correctly. If you come out, there should be boasting back and forth. But really, there shouldn't be. Because I should say, okay, I want to pick the best that I can get here without boasting. So if I take this one, and you say, well, I'll take that one and boast on it, fantastic. I will then take the better character. But when I do that, then you'll take another one with a boast on it. So the boasting, all it really does is it evens the characters out before you go off into the dungeon. And then you just play out the dungeon. Okay, there's humor in the game, Munchkin fans, you know, the people who like, you know, humor, and humor makes a big chunk of the game, they'll like that. And I won't say that I didn't laugh at parts of the game. It was very fun killing the strange and silly creatures and seeing the combinations. But in the long run, it's like eating 2 potato chips, and then the person closes the bag and says, "That's good enough. That was 1 serving." What? That's not 1 serving? Well, too bad. And that's what I felt about this game. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't enough either. So when it comes down to games of Mr. Vaccarino's that I like or don't like, this one's kind of squarely in the middle, but I'm not going to keep it because it's just not good enough. It's not a game in its own. It's a fun experience, and I'm glad I played through it, but I don't ever feel the need to do it again.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.